rile me because of my family's foreign heritage, but let me make this clear. Never, and I repeat, never will I be driven from this city because of bigotry and intolerance. Jack's ears rang as if they'd been slapped, but he drove all expression from his face. The mayor, a gaunt man of considerable intelligence, rose from the back of the church. In a black, high-collared suit with starched white shirt and florid kerchief, he was the very picture of a successful politician. "You, sir, are out of order." A hush enveloped the room. "The remarks, sir," the mayor continued, "were not directed at you or your family, but rather the riffraff and flotsam that have recently invaded from coastal cities, stealing, cheating, littering these streets with their unsavory behavior. I also suggest to you, sir—" "I need no suggestion from you," Ethan interrupted in only slightly more measured tones. "Nor can I ignore the implication." Jack could see his father's face had turned crimson. He leaned over the rail, scanned the room, and saw a pair of eyes looking up, frozen on him. They belonged to Slocum. "This nation's independence," Ethan went on, "so recent even you could not be unaware of it, was built upon the dictum that all men are created equal, and being so are welcomed into our great country. This land is populated with foreigners." Ethan paused to catch his breath. Jack knew his father had gone too far, and being the man he was, would plunge ahead. "The riffraff, as you call them, were oppressed in other lands, and have as much right to be here as you gentlemen sitting here smug and comfortable. You seem to have forgotten how this nation was formed." Several men began stirring and prepared to leave the assembly. Jack could feel his father's frustration. "This nation was not founded to propagate the notion of an empire, but to free the oppressed, allow freedom of speech, and grant the right to pursue one's God-given talents." Silence ensued. Suddenly, laughter erupted from various parts of the room. This metalworker had overstepped his bounds. Perhaps realizing this, Ethan stopped and made his way between the pews of the old church toward the entrance. When he reached the door, he paused, his back to the congregation, and in one swift move he flung it open and slammed it behind him. Jack felt numb. His friends shifted nervously. He knew his father's words were true, but voicing them so stridently gave them a life of their own, a vision of the villagers' behavior that would be hard for them to accept. The townspeople were nosy and narrow-minded, but Jack sensed that they probably weren't much different than people in most places. It was just that his idealist father brought out the worst in them. Over the years, in 3 different towns, Jack had fought schoolyard battles with bullies who made fun of his mother's accent, or ridiculed his father's wild-eyed fervor for justice and rightful authority based on the rule of law, not entitlement. Jack rose, staring back at the boys until they averted their eyes. He descended the steep stairs and followed his father out into the night. By nature, Jack was a loner. Generally liked and respected by his peers, he had still made no close friends in his years at Hampden. Most hours in the day, if not spent beside his father's forge, were spent reluctantly with books. Not a natural student, he pursued his studies at an age when most young men in Hampden had turned from schooling to more practical matters. Hunched against the cold, his feet crackling through dead leaves, Jack mulled over the meeting with a heavy heart. He felt events in his life were building toward some change. His father had really angered people tonight. Deep down he knew that his mother would be readily accepted by most of the townsfolk if it weren't for his dad. Despite her Cuban heritage, his mother's features, brown eyes, full lips, and light olive skin, were attractive, and she radiated a warmth that disarmed people, accent or no. But Ethan's manner made many uncomfortable. Jack recalled an incident several years earlier in which his father railed against slavery in a public meeting. Although many in the crowd were like-minded, his father's tone had been accusing and unconvincing. After the meeting, a young hooligan, perhaps sensing the gunsmith was unpopular, lobbed a piece of dried horse dung at the O'Reilly carriage as the family was riding home. It hit his mother in the back of her head. Not quite 13 at the time, Jack quietly wiped her soiled hair with a kerchief, while his father launched into a red-faced tirade, threatening mayhem against the retreating schoolboy. Onlookers shook their heads. 2 days later, the ruffian who had offended his mother was spotted extricating himself from a manure pile at Harmon's stables with a black eye and a bloody nose. He was afraid to name his attacker, but no one doubted it was Jack O'Reilly. Short-lived satisfaction brooded Jack. Nor was the family's financial status improving. As talented an artisan as his father was, the diminishing opportunities for fine gun makers was not helped by his outbursts. It seemed life was becoming harder all the time. A chilled breeze promised an early snow as Jack rounded the next corner. He felt resentment take hold as various signs indicated he was near home.